Hernando County Sheriff Al Nienhuis here with another episode of Just the Facts. As you know, I like to take this opportunity to highlight some of the great work of the people here at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. And in a couple of our past episodes, we talked about finding bodies and what we went through to bring the killer to justice. But sometimes we get information that a crime occurred, but we have absolutely no evidence of that crime. And that's what we have in this episode. So joining me again is Inspector Brian Stevens. Welcome.
Thanks, sir.
Let's take me back to June of, 2018?
Yes, sir.
Middle to end of June of 2018. And I guess we get kind of a phone call that's a bit unusual, not totally unusual for law enforcement. Sometimes we get these tips and we got to work them, but tell me a little bit about this particular tip that we got in.
Sure. It was June 20th, 2018, and a normal day. We got a call from the Tampa Police Department. A detective down there contacted Detective Lloydgren, who you know very well, and saying that he had gotten a report of a homicide. His reporter was actually coming from the Brunswick area of Georgia. So the information that he received was this gentleman named Jeffrey Morrison had confessed to a friend up there that he had killed his girlfriend.
So we get information from Tampa that somebody in Brunswick, Georgia, said that a friend of his confessed to a murder.
Correct.
Okay. So so far we don't even know how Hernando plays into this. So tell us how the conversation transpired after that. We got a little more information.
Yes, sir. So the name that he provided was the Jeffrey Michael Morrison, and the victim was Mitzi Babb, his girlfriend. Okay. So the detective down in Tampa, because Mr. Morrison had an apartment down there at one time, they thought that's where it may have occurred. Once he did his research, he figured out that Miss Babb was a park ranger out at Croom.
So that's, for those of you who don't know, that's kind of near I-75 and State Road 50 in that general area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So that's why he contacted Detective Lloydgren. Obviously, Detective Lloydgren has tons of contacts all over the place. So we sat down at the round table. We discussed it. We said, okay, well, let's get out there, because he had supposedly, the information that we received was he had killed her and dumped her in a river. And being a park ranger, we thought, was it the Withlacoochee River out there? Because that's where she works.
That would be a good way to start anyway, a place to start.
That was our first starting point. So we went out to the house. She lived out in that area. We checked the house. Her dogs were in crates. Everything looked normal. Her vehicles were there. No signs of struggle, nothing. Everything looked good.
So at this point, she could have just went to the store for all we knew.
Correct. Right. But the information he gave was pretty specific, and then we started contacting family members and friends, and nobody had seen or heard from her. We got this information on the 20th, and I think her last contact was on the 19th, where she was text messaging a friend.
So about 24 hours. We know she hadn't been missing more than 24 hours then at that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we made the determination, well, let's take this seriously, because we don't know if we have a homicide. We don't know what's going on. We have a missing person, which she may be a victim of foul play. So, of course, we have to treat that accordingly, because you don't want to sidestep that. Then you end up losing valuable evidence later on because we didn't take it seriously.
Well, obviously, I think people know that we know that this turned out to be legitimate if they know Mitzi Babb. But, how often do we get tips like this? Now, you and I talked a little bit. This tip seemed to have a little bit more specifics, and it was a little closer to the actual event because the suspect apparently talked to this reporter directly.
Correct.
But, how often do we get tips when it goes two or three people down the telephone game? How often do we find out that something comes across that sounds pretty heinous turns out to be absolutely nothing?
Right.
And that does happen.
It does, and it's fortunate, because when you find out that it's actually nothing happening, that's great. But in this case, obviously, it turned out the other direction.
Okay, so now we have some information that Ms. Babb was missing, and no more than 24 hours. She, again, might be at the store or at the movies for all we know. What do you do next at that point?
So we contacted Sumter County as well as our Marine unit, and they started checking the river with their sonar. Unfortunately, at that time of year, I remember at this time, it was at flood stage, the river was, so that made it difficult. And we started checking all the areas they may have gone out to because they were both avid hikers. We had heard that they may have gone up to the caves up in Citrus County. We had Citrus County check that area, and we still didn't locate anything. Right. So at that point...
It's a needle in a haystack at that point.
Yes, sir.
Literally, yeah, okay.
We had no information. We had his vehicle, which was the only thing that was missing, was a Kia Soul. So we were obviously looking for that just to try to verify either did something happen or are they just, like you said, out to the movies or something like that. So once we started going through that process and it started to seem to be a little more serious, or at least the evidence was lining up that maybe something did happen, myself, Detective Kraft, and forensic technician Clayton, when she was here, Caitlin Clayton, we jumped in my car, and that evening we headed for Georgia. We were going up to Brunswick to go interview the reporter and also see if there was any evidence left at the apartment, because that's where the suspect had gone to him and confessed to what happened.
Right. And, again, as we've said before, time is of the essence. You can't wait a few days, and you can't find anything here to prove or disprove that a crime occurred. So I guess in your mind at that point, the next best thing is let's go talk to the person who has the most and best information. So that's what you did. Okay.
That's exactly what we did. Okay. So we got up there. We went and visited him the next morning with the, I think it was the Franklin County Sheriff's Office up there. They had a representative came out with us because that's who he reported it to.
Right.
And went and met with him. Very nice man. And he told us he was friends with Mr. Morrison, and Mr. Morrison basically just showed up very early, about 6 o'clock in the morning, saying, hey, can I crash here for a few hours? He needed some sleep. So being a friend, he let him in. And then somewhere during that, as Mr. Morrison was walking away to the bathroom, the reporter looked and said, you've got blood on the back of your shirt. And he just kind of, brushed it off. Then a little while later, as they were watching TV, he stopped the TV and he said, okay, what's going on, to Mr. Morrison? And that's when Mr. Morrison confessed to him that he had killed Mitzi and thrown her body in a river. At the time, we had heard Crooked River. There's a Crooked River campground in the Silver Lake, which that's where we were focusing our search at that point anyway. Mm-hmm. So we went with that. And we finished processing things in his apartment that could have been left for any DNA evidence and that nature. Mm-hmm. And from there, we got word that our suspect had gone over to the Warner Robins, Georgia area, broke into his ex-sister-in-law's house, stole some firearms, and tried to set the house on fire.
Right, and for reference, that's probably about 3.5 hours kind of north and west. We were looking on the map, so it's quite a ways away too.
Yes, sir.
So he had done that. I guess we believe he did that after he left our reporter's house or before he got there. Must have been after.
After, yes,
okay,
sir.
So he left the person who was reporting to us, the person you were interviewing, he apparently left there, went to a former family member, a sister-in-law, former sister-in-law, broke into her house, stole a gun, and set it on fire. Wow, okay. So, that again, when you hear that, now we have a little bit, it's falling into place that something bad's probably happened, because most people don't do that if they're innocent.
Yeah, we're getting a little more,
right,
hinked up on this now.
Right.
So we went over to the Warner Robins area. We actually interviewed the suspect's parents over there to see if they had any information. We didn't really get, they didn't have a whole lot. He had been in contact with them, but they didn't really know anything about what had happened. At that point, he's off the grid. We don't know where he's at. So we kind of settled in.
This is just for clarification. This is the same day, right? This
the
is
next day.
I mean, the next morning, the same day you interviewed the reporter, though. This was all happening almost instantaneously from the time you first met the person who reported it up in Georgia. This is all falling, and you have to drive 3.5 hours that same day after just the previous night driving up to Brunswick.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay, all right. Just making sure we have an idea of the timeline. So things are moving very, very quickly.
Extremely.
Okay.
So at that point, we kind of figured we didn't know where to go. We didn't want to leave that area in case he popped up on our radar somewhere, so we stayed put. They were still doing the searches down here in the river and whatnot, because, again, we still thought Crooked River down here. Somewhere around 7 o'clock that evening, roughly, we got a call that there was information that he was on I-75 in Georgia, but headed back towards Florida.
Okay.
So we started gathering. We were only in the hotel for maybe 2 hours. They actually didn't even charge us. They just said, nah, go ahead.
Okay.
So we jumped back in the car, started heading that way. Somewhere in that time frame, we got a call from Lieutenant Power that the suspect had stopped at the agricultural way station right as you get inside Florida, walked up to the booth and said, "You're looking for me. I killed my girlfriend. I want to turn myself in."
Wow. Okay.
To a particular gentleman that had been on the job for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, surprise.
Yeah. That's, for state particularly a lot of state law enforcement, you don't get too many people coming up to you and confessing to murder. That's
No,
for
sir.
sure. Yeah.
And he probably thought it was interesting when the gentleman pulled into an agricultural way station in a Kia Soul.
Right.
There's no livestock in that.
Right.
So they detained him, verified his identity. We headed that direction. By the time we got there, he was placed into custody, and they actually did the arrest for, I think it was the Peach County, for the arson.
Okay,
And
so they'd already gotten a warrant and everything for
They
the
did.
arson and put it in the system. So he was wanted at that point, even though we still don't have a body yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
No, sir. The interesting thing when we got there, one of the stolen firearms, I believe it was an AK-47, was on the front seat of the vehicle, locked, loaded, and ready to go.
At the agricultural station. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And I think we talked earlier too, and I don't know if you got this in your initial interview with the reporter, but the reporter gave some chilling information about his state of mind. Was that on the initial interview?
That was in the initial interview.
Okay, so what did the reporter say about our suspect's state of mind when he confessed to the murder to that reporter in the person who reported the crime to us in Brunswick?
So he told us that Mr. Morrison appeared upset and had made the comment after that he had killed Mitzi and he felt he could kill again. Our reporter got nervous and said, "Well, are you going to kill me?" And he said, No, I'm kind of past that right now. But that kind of goes through the ebbs and flows of the issues that he was having.
And again, now he has an AK-47, so obviously, if the wrong person approached him at the wrong time, and he still had that urge to kill, it could have turned very badly. It's fortunate for us he decided to turn himself in because it could have been. Obviously, you don't steal a gun for no reason, especially after you committed a murder. So. Anyway, so, okay, we have him at the agriculture inspection station, I-75, in the Georgia-Florida line, roughly, and he's turned himself in. Now what happens?
Well, he had a sign, a cardboard sign on his front seat that he'd handwritten that he had killed Mitzi and thrown her over the I-95 bridge in the Crooked River.
Okay, so that's where we got information where her body might actually be. Okay.
So we didn't know. Obviously, we were thinking Crooked River and Silver Lake, so we started researching and found out there is actually a Crooked River State Park in Camden County, Georgia, just over 95. Just 95 runs right through it.
Okay.
So we contacted the Camden County Sheriff's Office, and it was late at night at this point, and they said, "Okay, we'll go out in the morning. We'll take the helicopters up and the boats, and we'll look." So we were kind of shut down for the night at that point, and the next morning we were at breakfast and we got a call from Camden County. They were up for about 30 minutes and they found her.
Wow. And for reference, that's probably, if I remember correctly, looking at the map, less than an hour south of Brunswick. Probably, I thought it was about 40, but it's almost straight south of Brunswick on I-95 there.
Yes,
so it stands to reason he must have dumped her body about an hour or so before getting to the person who reported the crime to us.
What we think.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Okay, so now we've got a body.
Now we've got a body.
And so you're done, right?
Oh, never. The first thing we did is Detective Kraft and I drove back across 301, back up I-95 where we had just driven the previous day. We were going up to Brunswick, made contact over in Camden County to identify Miss Babb.
Yeah.
So we identified the body, and at that point, we're not done, but we're kind of, okay, here we can relax. He's in custody. We know where the body is. There's nobody missing, nobody outstanding at this point.
Right, and you don't have to worry about him hurting anybody else, that's for sure. Okay.
So at that point, we called it a day and came home, and I think I figured we drove roughly over 1,000 miles in that 2-day span.
Wow. Again, I don't think people realize that's a lot of driving. And it's not just the stress of driving. You also have either a potential murder or a murder, and you're trying to think, okay, when we get there, how are we going to approach this? Who are we going to talk to? What are we going to do? We don't want to, miss anything or get, get things out of order, because that can mess up a whole case too. If you
Stakes are very high.
Very high stakes. So very stressful. But again, it's still not over. We pretty much have an idea. I think I read something. You got some video of, and I assume that probably came a little bit later,
Yes, sir.
of him and our victim together at a Publix, I think, and everything looked fine there as far as we could tell.
Yes, sir.
But then later on, you got another video of him maybe buying some food at a convenience store. Was that in Sumter County?
I believe, if I remember correctly, it was in Marion County.
Marion County, so a little further north. And he was alone at that point.
Correct.
And we saw what possibly, and there's no way to prove it, but might have been some blood stains on his shirt. So,
Right.
But the challenge is, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, is who has jurisdiction. She's missing from Hernando. We have really no idea where she's killed. It could have been in Hernando. It could have been anywhere between here and Brunswick. And then, of course, we have the body in Brunswick. We have a burglary and an arson in Warner Robins, which really kind of stands by itself. So is that, obviously the prosecutors have to get involved, and were they able to come to an agreement, in a few minutes to decide who was going to take this case, or what
No, sir.
happened?
It took some time before they could. They wanted to interview Mr. Morrison. Camden County did before they made a decision, because they had the body.
Right.
So it took some time, because at this point he was in custody in Florida. He had to be extradited up to I think it was Peach County for the arson. Once that was done, he was transferred over to Camden, and they went and they tried to conduct an interview with him, but he did not talk. He lawyered up. So at that point, they finally made the decision, well, we have the body here, so Camden County took the prosecution up, which we didn't really joke, but it was one of the things was, well, if they call us for the trial, they're going to have everybody in major cases going to be in Georgia for that trial, because we had all worked on it.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think they actually ended up charging him with manslaughter and improperly disposing of a body or something similar.
Something to that effect, yes, sir.
Okay. And his trial's over with, and he ended up getting what we were talking before the podcast. He ended up getting at least 20 years, and maybe more if it was consecutive sentences.
Correct.
But I think for our viewers who may not understand, how do we normally, because this is a perfect example of that, all else being equal, who has jurisdiction when a body's found?
Right. If you can't prove where the homicide occurred, it ends up being who has the body.
Who has the body? Even if there's some evidence that it probably didn't happen there,
Right.
but you don't know where it happens, the law says we're just going to assume it happened in that jurisdiction.
You can't just get away with it because you can't prove the jurisdictions.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. And we're not really sure where it happened. There's maybe a tiny bit of evidence that it happened between here and Marion County, but again, nothing that would hold up in court as to where it happened. So, the safe way to go there for the family and to get justice for the victim is where the body's found, because you have jurisdiction there,
Right.
and unless you can prove otherwise. So, this sounds like a case where Camden County, all things considered, didn't have to do a tremendous amount of work other than finding the body when it came to prosecuting that case. And did you have to go up and testify to it, or was a plea deal done, or?
No, sir. I don't remember if they did exactly a plea deal or if they did the trial, but we didn't get called.
You didn't get called, huh?
No, sir.
That's interesting. So, well, I guess that's good news for us here in Hernando County, because we would have been without a major case unit for probably at least a couple of days minimum.
Right.
So, well, that's good. Well, again, I think Is there anything else that you think interesting about that we hadn't talked about? Any twists and turns? I mean, that's enough, but
No, the biggest twist and turn was the whole Crooked River thing, not knowing, thinking that it was here in Silver Lake, and it ended up being up there in Georgia.
yeah, Silver Lake meaning it's in northeast Hernando County is
Yes,
Silver
sir.
Lake, right? Yeah. Well, I think people need to understand, and I think our viewers, is that we take these tips very seriously. Our first and foremost goal is to determine, did a crime actually occur? Because obviously, if a crime didn't occur, then we don't have much further to go. But once we believe a crime occurs, we just keep working it again. Another perfect example, and he actually turned himself in. If I remember, it was the 22nd, or was it the evening of the 21st?
It was the 21st in the evening.
Okay, so we think she was missing about 24 hours roughly before we got the call from the reporter, and then maybe another 24 36 hours we had him in custody, and you had driven 1,000 miles basically.
Roughly, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, very good. All right, again, I'm Hernando County Sheriff Alan Nienhuis. That concludes this episode of Just the Facts. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'd appreciate if you'd hit that subscribe button and the like button. The same thing on Facebook. If you could like this video and share it with your friends. We certainly like to get this information out, and I like to highlight the great work we do here at the Sheriff's Office. I always tell people I have a lot of great people. I'll put them up against anybody in the nation as far as solving crime. And as always, we appreciate your support of law enforcement. We never take it for granted.